Hello, friends, and welcome to Automation Nation. In today's episode, we'll dive into the first chapter of the ISTQB Test Automation Engineer syllabus. This podcast will be generated by AI, so using the power of Notebook LM, we'll explore key concepts, best practices, and foundational knowledge every test automation engineer needs to succeed. Stay tuned as we break down the essentials of test automation one chapter at a time. Let's get started.
Well, today we're going to deep dive into a field that's crucial to making that happen.
Test Automation Engineering.
Exactly.
And to really get a feel for it, we'll be using the ISTQB Certified Tester Advanced Level Test Automation Engineering syllabus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of the gold standard for anyone working in this field.
Okay.
Don't worry, though. We'll translate all the jargon.
Okay, good.
And get to the good stuff.
The stuff that affects us, right?
Exactly. The stuff that affects you.
Perfect, because I know you can make even the most technical stuff interesting.
I'll try my best.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is test automation?
Okay, so the syllabus defines it like this, and I'm quoting here. Test automation is the use of software tools to control the execution of tests, the comparison of actual outcomes to predicted outcomes, the setting up of test preconditions, and other test control and reporting functions.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is a bit of a mouthful.
So basically, it's using special software to run a bunch of tests on other software without needing a human to sit there and click everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Imagine having a tireless robot team that can run hundreds or even thousands of tests at once, checking every little detail of a program.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
Especially if it means fewer glitches for us users.
Of course.
But you said other software. I thought this was just for things like apps on our phones.
Nope, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Really?
Yeah, think about all the systems running behind the scenes.
Okay.
The software in your car, the systems controlling traffic lights, even the programs managing your bank account. All of that needs testing.
Wow.
And automation can reach places human testers can't.
So it's not just about making sure an app looks pretty. It's about making sure the underlying systems are rock solid.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And the syllabus really drives home the why. For example, it mentions that automation allows for increased coverage of the tested features and reduces the risk of human error.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Even the best human tester can miss things or get tired and make mistakes.
Absolutely.
But a computer can run the same test over and over without complaining.
That's the beauty of it.
So is that the main benefit then? Just more testing more quickly?
It's definitely a big one, but there's more to it.
Oh, okay.
Think about how much more complex software is getting.
Yeah, it is.
You've got programs interacting with each other in real time, different devices connecting through the cloud.
It's a lot.
Trying to test all of that manually would be a nightmare.
I bet.
Automation lets you create incredibly intricate tests that simulate all sorts of scenarios.
And I bet it saves a ton of time, especially when developers are releasing updates every other week.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's got to be a huge win for the people building software, right?
You bet. In fact, the syllabus points out that by repeating those tests often, one can be confident that the software has not regressed.
Makes sense.
So you're not just testing faster, you're also testing more consistently.
Right.
Which gives developers more confidence in the code they're putting out.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like automation is almost like a superpower for software teams.
It kind of is.
They can test more, test faster, and be more confident in their results.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
But let's be honest, there has to be a downside, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch.
You're right. No solution is perfect.
Right.
And the syllabus does acknowledge that there are some disadvantages and limitations to consider.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of drawbacks are we talking about here?
Well, first off, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the cost.
Okay.
Building a robust automation system requires a significant investment. You need skilled engineers, specialized software tools, and ongoing maintenance. It's not something you can just slap together overnight.
That makes sense. And even if you have the budget for all of that, I imagine it still takes time and effort to get it right.
Absolutely. And that's where the importance of clear objectives comes in.
Okay.
The syllabus stresses that you need to know exactly what you want to achieve with automation before you even start.
Right.
Otherwise, you risk wasting time and resources building a system that doesn't really solve your problems.
So it's like any other tool, really. It's only effective if you know how to use it properly and have a clear goal in mind. But are there any limitations to what automation can do? Like, are there types of testing where it just doesn't work as well?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another key point from the syllabus.
Okay.
It clearly states that test automation cannot replace human testers, but rather supports them in their testing activities.
Hold on. So even with all this fancy automation, you still need real humans involved in the process.
Absolutely. Some aspects of testing simply require human judgment and intuition.
Like what?
Think about testing user experience, for example.
Okay.
Can a machine truly assess how easy and enjoyable a website is to use?
Good point. A computer might be able to check if all the buttons work,
Right.
but it can't tell you if the design is confusing or the text is hard to read.
Exactly.
So are there any other situations where human testers have the edge?
Definitely.
Okay.
One thing the syllabus highlights is that automated tests can only verify results that are machine interpretable.
Machine interpretable. What does that even mean?
Think of it this way. Imagine you're testing a website that displays images. An automated test can easily check if the images load properly. But can it tell you if the images are aesthetically pleasing or convey the right message to the user? Probably not.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So while automation is amazing for checking the technical stuff, it still needs human eyes and brains to assess the things that are harder to quantify.
Exactly. And that's why the best testing approaches combine the strengths of both humans and machines.
So it's not about replacing humans, it's about giving them a superpower so they can focus on the things that really matter.
I like that. Giving them a superpower.
Now that we have a good grasp of what automation is and why it's important, I'm curious to see how it fits into different software development life cycles.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
There are a few common approaches,
Okay.
each with its own unique challenges and opportunities for automation.
All right.
Maybe we could start with the classic waterfall model.
Okay.
It's a bit old school, but it helps illustrate the basics. The waterfall model is like building a house.
Okay.
You have your blueprints, your foundation, then you build the walls, the roof,
Right.
and finally you do the finishing touches.
Okay.
Each stage happens in a specific order,
Okay.
and you don't move on until the previous one is complete.
So where does testing fit into this house building analogy?
Well, in a traditional waterfall model,
Okay.
testing is often treated as a separate phase that comes after development.
Oh, okay.
It's like doing a final inspection once
Right.
the house is built.
And that's where automation can get a little tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because if you wait until the very end to start testing,
Uh-huh.
you might uncover a bunch of problems that require major rework.
Exactly. That's one of the downsides of the waterfall model.
Yeah.
It can lead to long delays and costly fixes if bugs are found late in the game.
Oh, I see.
But even within this model,
Yeah.
automation can still play a valuable role.
I'm guessing it's mostly used for those repetitive, time-consuming tests that no one wants to do manually.
You got it.
Okay.
Things like regression testing, where you're making sure that new code changes haven't broken existing functionality.
Yeah.
Automation is perfect for that.
Okay, so even in the waterfall model, there's room for automation to shine.
Definitely.
But you mentioned that there are other approaches to software development.
Right.
What about the V model?
Okay.
I've heard that one mentioned in the context of testing.
The V model is interesting because it tries to address some of the limitations of the waterfall model by emphasizing the connection between each development stage and its corresponding testing phase.
Okay.
The syllabus describes it as a framework to describe the software development lifecycle activities from requirement specification to maintenance.
So instead of testing being an afterthought, it's baked into the process from the beginning.
Exactly.
Okay.
Imagine drawing a big V
Okay.
on the left side.
Uh-huh.
You have all the development activities,
Right.
starting with requirements gathering at the top
Okay.
and going down to coding and implementation at the bottom point of the V.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Okay.
So what's on the right side of the V?
That's where testing comes in.
Okay.
Each development stage on the left has a corresponding testing activity on the right,
Okay.
mirroring the development process.
Right.
So, for example, as the developers are writing code,
Yeah.
the testers are simultaneously developing test cases based on the requirements.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
You're catching potential issues much earlier in the process.
exactly.
And I'm guessing automation plays a big role here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The V model actually encourages you to think about automation right from the start.
Oh, okay.
The syllabus talks about creating a test automation framework for each level of testing,
Gotcha.
from unit testing all the way up to acceptance testing.
So you're not just automating individual tests.
Right.
You're creating a whole system for managing and executing those tests throughout the development lifecycle.
Yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
it is, but even the V model has its limitations.
Okay.
It can still be quite rigid
Uh-huh.
and doesn't always handle rapid change as well.
Okay.
And that brings us to the approach that's really taken the software world by storm.
All right.
Agile development.
Agile.
Yeah.
The buzzword of the century.
I know, right?
Everyone seems to be talking about it these days.
It's everywhere.
But how does it actually work in practice?
So Agile is all about flexibility, collaboration,
Okay.
and delivering value quickly
Okay.
instead of long, drawn-out development cycles.
Right.
You work in short bursts called sprints. Sprints
Just-
typically lasting a couple of weeks.
And each sprint focuses on delivering a small, functional piece of the software.
Exactly.
Okay.
And testing is tightly integrated into each sprint.
Gotcha.
In fact, the syllabus stresses the importance of in-sprint automation,
Okay.
which means achieving comprehensive testing within each sprint cycle.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It can be.
Squeezing all that testing into such a short time frame must be a real challenge for the automation engineers.
It is, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
Really?
Yeah, because you're testing so frequently
Yeah.
and getting feedback so quickly,
Okay.
you can catch and fix bugs before they become major problems.
So it's like a constant feedback loop
Exactly.
with developers and testers working together to ensure quality every step of the way.
Exactly.
And because Agile embraces change,
Mm-hmm.
the automation system needs to be flexible and adaptable as well.
Absolutely.
It's not just about running a static set of tests.
Right.
It's about constantly evolving the testing strategy to meet the changing needs of the project.
Yeah, it's a very dynamic process.
Okay, so we've got waterfall, where testing is often a separate phase at the end.
Right.
We've got the V model, where testing is planned in parallel with development.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Agile, where testing is fully integrated into every sprint.
Right.
It seems like the role of automation becomes more and more crucial as you move towards that Agile way of working.
Absolutely.
Yep.
In an agile environment, automation is not just a nice to have, it's essential for
Sure.
keeping up with the rapid pace of development.
Yeah, makes sense.
But no matter which approach you're using, choosing the right automation tools is critical.
Let's talk tools.
Right.
That's something I'm really curious about.
Okay.
With so many options out there, how do you even begin to choose the right ones for the job?
Well, the syllabus offers some excellent guidance here.
Okay.
It emphasizes the importance of understanding your system under test
Okay.
or set inside and out.
Okay.
What are its specific characteristics? What technologies are involved? What are the key risks and potential failure points?
So you're basically doing a deep dive into the software itself
Yeah,
before you even think about tools?
exactly.
Okay.
Because different tools are designed for different types of testing.
Right.
You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, right?
I see your point.
Yeah.
But still, the sheer number of tools out there can be overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the key factors to consider when making a decision?
Well, besides the technical fit with your SUT,
Okay.
you also need to think about your team's skills and experience.
Okay.
If you have a team of seasoned coders,
Uh-huh.
you might opt for a tool that gives you a lot of flexibility and customization options.
So you can really fine-tune the automation to fit your specific needs.
Exactly.
Okay.
But if your team has limited programming experience,
Yeah.
there are some fantastic low-code or no-code solutions available.
Oh.
Yeah, these tools let you build automated tests using visual interfaces and pre-built components.
Oh, wow.
So you don't need to be a coding wizard to get started.
That's great. It makes automation more accessible to a wider range of teams.
Absolutely.
And don't forget about the cost factor.
Right.
Some tools require expensive licenses,
Uh-huh.
while others are open source and free to use.
Exactly.
You need to weigh the pros and cons
Right.
and choose what makes sense for your budget and your project goals.
It's all about finding the right balance.
Lots to consider.
Definitely.
But here's something that struck me as interesting when I was reading through the syllabus.
Okay.
It mentions that if your team has strong coding skills,
Yeah.
it can be beneficial to choose tools that use the same programming language as the software under test.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It might seem like a small detail,
Okay.
but it can make a huge difference in terms of collaboration and efficiency.
How so?
Imagine a test sales.
Okay.
If the automation code and the software code are written in the same language,
Yeah.
the developers and the testers can both understand what's going on
Right.
and work together to fix the problem more easily. It's
Okay.
like speaking the same language,
Gotcha.
which makes communication and troubleshooting much smoother.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's like having a universal translator built right into the process.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like choosing the right automation tools is a bit like putting together a puzzle.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
You need to consider the technical requirements,
Uh-huh.
your team's skills,
Yes.
your budget,
Of course.
and even the programming languages involved.
It's all part of the big picture.
And just like with a puzzle, the more P's you have in the right place,
Yeah,
the clearer the bigger picture becomes.
exactly.
So we've talked about what automation is,
Right.
why it's important, how it fits into different development approaches,
Yep.
and even how to choose the right tools.
We've covered a lot of ground.
But what does this all mean for the future of software development?
That's the big question.
How is automation changing the way we build and test software? It really feels like automation is becoming the backbone of software development,
Oh, absolutely.
especially with all this talk about agile and DevOps these days.
Right. Think of it this way. Automation is like building a network of quality checks
Okay.
throughout the entire development process.
Right.
It's not just about testing at the end anymore.
Right.
It's about constantly monitoring and improving quality from the moment a line of code is written.
So it's less like a final inspection and more like having a team of tiny robots constantly patrolling the construction site,
Exactly.
making sure everything is up to code.
Yes, and the syllabus even hints at this shift. It talks about how automation can be applied to things like code reviews
Okay.
and continuous integration and deployment.
Okay.
These are all practices that are becoming essential in modern software development.
So automation isn't just about testing the software itself. It's about testing the entire process of building software.
That's right, and this has huge implications for how teams are structured
Okay.
and how people work.
How so?
Well, in the past, you had developers who wrote code and testers who tested it.
Right. Separated.
But now, those lines are blurring.
So are you saying that developers are becoming testers
Kind of.
and testers are becoming developers?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
The roles are becoming more integrated,
Okay.
and everyone needs to have a good understanding of automation principles. In fact, the syllabus specifically mentions that test automation engineers need to be able to communicate effectively with both developers and business stakeholders.
That makes sense. After all, you're all working towards the same goal.
Right.
Building high-quality software that meets the needs of users.
Exactly. And as automation becomes more sophisticated, we're going to see even more blurring of roles and responsibilities,
Interesting.
which is pretty exciting, if you ask me.
It definitely sounds like it's shaking things up in the software world.
Yeah.
But all this talk about the future has got me wondering, what does it take to actually become a test automation engineer?
Okay.
What kind of skills and knowledge do you need?
For first and foremost, you need a solid understanding of software development principles.
Okay.
You don't necessarily need to be a coding whiz,
Right.
but you do need to understand how software is built and how it works.
So you need to speak the language of developers, even if you're not writing the code yourself.
Exactly. And of course, you need a deep understanding of testing methodologies.
Like what?
You need to know how to design effective tests, how to analyze results, and how to identify and report bugs.
And then there's the automation part,
Right.
which I'm guessing involves learning specific tools and programming languages.
That's right. There's a whole ecosystem of automation tools out there, each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And you need to be comfortable working with scripting languages like Python or JavaScript.
It sounds like a pretty demanding field,
It can be challenging, yeah.
but also really rewarding if you're passionate about quality and technology.
Absolutely. It's a challenging but incredibly rewarding career path. And the best part is it's a field that's constantly evolving.
Oh, cool.
So there's always something new to learn.
Speaking of learning, what advice would you give to someone listening who's thinking, hey, this test automation stuff sounds pretty cool. Where do I start?
First, I'd say embrace your curiosity. There are tons of free resources available online.
Oh, cool.
Blogs, forums, open source projects.
Nice.
Start exploring, start experimenting, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.
Learning by doing, that's the best way.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing there's a vibrant community of testers out there who are happy to share their knowledge and experiences.
Absolutely. The testing community is incredibly welcoming and supportive.
Okay.
Don't hesitate to reach out, ask questions, and connect with other testers online or at meetups.
So it's not just about technical skills.
Right.
It's also about being part of a community of passionate individuals who are constantly pushing the boundaries of quality.
That's a great way to put it, and I think that's something that's often overlooked. Test automation is often seen as a purely technical discipline,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that.
It's about problem solving.
Yes,
It's about collaboration.
absolutely.
And it's about making sure that the technology we rely on every day actually works as intended.
Well said. And as technology continues to advance at an ever-accelerating pace, the role of test automation is only going to become more critical. We need skilled and passionate individuals who are dedicated to ensuring that the software we use is reliable, secure, and performs as expected.
It's been absolutely fascinating learning about this world. You've really opened my eyes to the complexity and importance of test automation.
It's been my pleasure. And for anyone listening who's intrigued by this field, I encourage you to dive in and explore further. It's a dynamic and rewarding career path with a bright future ahead.
Great advice, and a huge thank you to you for sharing your insights and expertise with us today.
You're most welcome. Always happy to shed light on this often overlooked but vitally important field.
And all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of test automation engineering. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for the work that goes into making the software you use reliable and enjoyable. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep testing.